Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Kieron McCann. He is a partner at A Few Good People, a specialist consultancy that focuses on helping service businesses to productize their offerings. Welcome to the show, Kieron.
Hi, AJ. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Kieron. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn from you how one can productize their service business. We'll learn all about this. But before that, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, so that people know who they are listening to.
Sure. So I'm a partner in a business called A Few Good People. We're just a sort of boutique specialist consultancy that focuses on product management and productization. We don't just work with services businesses. We also work with product companies as well. My background is quite varied, actually. My very first job was actually in the New Zealand wine industry, of all places, where I was a brand manager. And a lot of people would be saying, wow, like, how did you go from wine to, product management? So I looked after a number of brands in the New Zealand market. And I got involved, this is going to give away a little bit of my age. I got involved in a Y2K project. And I actually found it really interesting. And as a result of that, then I ended up going and working for a web application developer. And then I moved into telecoms. And telecoms is extremely rigorous around product management because, you're producing products that will be used by millions of people. They need to be very robust. So I got a very good grounding in product management, product strategy in the telecommunications market for about 15 years. And then I ended up, through a strange set of circumstances, working for an agency, a tech agency that implemented content management platforms, actually via my business partner in A Few Good People. And what we discovered in agencies, particularly advertising agencies, that a lot of them tended to repeat their processes because they're a business that values creativity. It kind of pervades everything in the business. And so they tend to want to reinvent everything every time they do something new for a client. And because we'd had a strong background in product management, we kind of saw that there was a better way to do that. So that's what we started doing. And we found that by productizing your services, you could generate much higher returns and better client satisfaction out of doing it. And so 2 years ago, we decided to set up our own consultancy and try and help people to do that.
Absolutely, Kieron. So to understand for a common person who is into either products or services or anything, but not everyone understands from a technical point of view. So from a very simple person's point of view, what should we understand when you say productizing your services business? Service. How do we create it into a product? It looks like you are changing some liquid or gas into a solid form.
Yeah, for sure. We're not talking about trying to turn your services into a can of beans. We kind of view it, there's a continuum, right? And at one end, you've got very rigorous products, like a thing that you would put on a shelf. And there's no customization, there's no personalization of that product. You either take it or leave it. At the other extreme, you've got services businesses where nothing is defined and everything is pretty much invented on the fly. So what happens there is you get the repetition of things, reinvention of things, and often you get quite low efficiency. So where we're aiming to get is somewhere in between those 2 points, right? A productized service. And really what a productized service is, we talk about 2 spheres. Like, there's the external sphere, which is how you talk about what you do, how you do it in a consistent way so that people can understand it, and how you build your value proposition around that message. So that's kind of the external view of it. But there's also an internal view, which is around how you organize yourself as a business to be able to do things efficiently and repeatedly, so that you generate better margins. So if you think about the external part is your revenue sphere, and your internal part is kind of your revenue, your margin sphere. And we try and work on both of those to try and maximize efficiency and profitability, and to win the right business. And winning the right business is really one of the key things, because one of the things that happens in services business is people who deliver services, they're very there's a work, a mindset of delivering services, which is you want to help people and you want to say yes to people. And product businesses are almost the opposite of that, in that a lot of the time product businesses are about saying no. Can I change the product? No. So they're two different mindsets, and what we're trying to get is to blend a little bit of that together so that people can say yes, but to not say yes to things that they can't do.
Absolutely. So for a service business, where does this productization work? Is it only few industries, or one can do this productization in all sort of services business?
Well, we talk about product thinking as a philosophy. It's not a rigid rule set. And when we started this business, our view was, well, we've done this for advertising agencies. We'll go out and do it again. And that's who we first started to target. But actually, we found since we started that a lot of customers have come from quite diverse industries. So we've had a client who is a Polish photography equipment manufacturer. We've had another Polish company that does air quality assessment. We've done some work for a London-based Magic Circle law firm. We've done some work for agencies as well. So the principles seem to hold true across industries, which is good. It's good for us. So I think everyone can really benefit from at least applying the thinking. You can make choices about how far you want to go, but I think there's opportunities for everyone to benefit.
Absolutely. So, Kieron, in terms of, when you productize, what are the benefits which you don't get when you are just offering plain services? Is it, unlocking the value of what you are providing, breaking it into different parts and putting some price tag to it? That's the way you can productize it. That's my understanding in one sense. Help us understand from that point of view. Suppose if I'm a service business, I do so many things, but I don't know about this. How should I understand this part and create value of what I am doing?
Yeah, I think at its most basic level, often I think a lot of people, when we talk about productization, they're like, oh, okay, so I just name some services and I put them on a price list and they're productized. And okay, yes, at a very basic level, that is productization. But usually when you do that, you run into problems, because if you have a very tightly defined service, you've got a range of, services. You've got to have some flex in services, right? And if you do that and you say, well, that's my service and that's my price, you inevitably run across people that have slightly different requirements and you need to do things slightly differently. So having that really rigid structure will appeal to some customers, but not, as many probably as you need. So what we try and do is to help clients to make their services modular. So you can kind of assemble an offering, you assemble a service. To the client, it feels bespoke because you've selected the parts. The analogy we always end up using, it's a bit like Lego, right? You've got a box of Lego bricks and someone says, I'd like a Golden Gate Bridge built. And you use the bricks you have and you build a Golden Gate Bridge. Someone else says, I want to make a Taj Mahal. And you go, okay, we'll use the bricks to make a Taj Mahal. But the bricks are the same, right? And that's the idea, that you can deliver different outcomes using the same components. So why would you want to productize? I think first of all, it brings some discipline to your proposition. So you're now focused on what problem you're trying to solve for customers. I think often services businesses focus on what they have capabilities to do, or we can do this, we can do that. But often what they don't do is talk about what problem we're going to solve for you. And when you start talking to clients around in that context, it creates some new possibilities. I would use an example of management consultants versus advertising agencies. Management consultants have been very successful. They make far better margins than advertising agencies. And the reason why they've been successful is because they sell a methodology. They turn up and they go, I see the problem you've got. I'm not going to give you the answer right now. Here's a methodology I have for solving that problem. And at the end, I will give you a solution to the problem. And what a client pays for is the process to solve that problem. And they pay a lot more for it from a management consultancy than they do from an advertising agency. An advertising agency often turns up and says, I've thought about your problem. Here's an idea that I've got of how to fix it. Here's my creative concept. So they turn up with a solution, and then it's down to whether the client likes it or not. What the client needs to buy into is, you've got a process for solving my problem. And so productization helps to do that by being clear about what problem you're solving. So that's the external sphere. I'm going to go out and solve these problems. And the advantage that has is when you start going out and looking for similar kinds of problems, the work that comes in as a result tends to be a little bit more uniform in nature. So you're not going from one thing to another that's completely different and then trying to figure out how to do it. Because figuring out how to do things on the job often produces poorer results. So it's kind of a self-reinforcing process. You go out looking to solve the same problems, work comes in the same shape, which means that you can build a delivery process because those problems and the work you're doing is more similar. So you get better at it, you iterate, you refine, you automate. So, use AI in certain processes or certain areas, and you get more efficient as you go. So it's kind of a self-reinforcing cycle of becoming progressively more efficient and more effective. I hope that answers your question.
It does. But if I am a service business and I go for this particular thing, productization of my services, and the industry goes the old way, do you think clients will find it difficult to understand what I'm offering, or will they find it easy to understand what I'm offering? Will it complicate things for my clients, or will it make it easy for them when the whole industry is already, in that traditional mode?
I would hope that it makes it easier, because if you've done your job properly, we have a process called a game plan, which we help clients work through, which is, it starts with the question of what problem are you solving? And you've got to be really clear and tight on that. Often, I'll give you an example of work. We did work for a client who offered some services, and in our discovery phase, we went in and we talked to their salespeople. And they had 17 salespeople, and we said, what do you sell? And we got 17 different answers. So that was a warning sign that even if you can't be clear yourself about what you're selling, your clients are not going to understand what you're selling. So one of the things we did was, okay, well, now we've got to tighten up on the definition, and we've got to have an agreed definition of what problems we're solving for our clients. And we have to have everyone that understands that common message. And there's a lot to be said for just being consistent in your message.
Absolutely. Now let's look at you emphasize marketing operations, marketing organization. You emphasize this whole concept of productization in marketing operations. How does that work? I thought it was just a function, a few things here and there. Here you are bringing a whole lot of new things.
Yeah, so we started off looking at agencies, like how agencies can do this. And we kind of realized that actually you can flip that on its head and look at it from the other end of the telescope, which is the client end. And so we started looking at, what marketing organizations do. And the whole world of marketing has changed a lot in the last 15 years. I'm quite old. I started in the 90s. Marketing was so different then. And then, I was right at the beginning of the internet coming along. And back then, marketing was very relationship driven. It was very, driven by people knowing people. It was very driven by artistic concepts and these sorts of things. Now it's software, it's data, it's analytics. And what has happened, there's this, this concept of basically that marketing now sits in two groups. You've either got brand marketing or you've got performance marketing, which is like continually iterating and gradually increasing your performance by making small adjustments. And what's happened is performance marketing, because it's very measured, CFOs like it, right? Because I can go, look, here's all the data that shows that we did this and we generated this many leads and we got this many sales. So CFOs like that. So as a result, performance marketing has grown and grown and grown, and it probably makes up about 2/3 of marketing operations these days. So it's people taking a concept, A/B testing it, refining it, measuring it, and it's just this continual iteration. But things are changing because now you've got AI entering the mix, and what that creates a possibility of doing is automating a lot of these processes. But a lot of marketing organizations are not very disciplined or structured in the way they do these things. And so what they try and do is, I kind of use the analogy of if you had a kids party, right? There's just kind of all kinds of stuff going on. Everyone's having a good time. There's lots of craziness happening, and you put a robot in the middle of it, and you're going, this will make things work well. It's not going to make it work well, right? It's just the craziness will continue. So what you have to do is you have to kind of organize yourself a bit better so that you can make choices about, okay, now we're going to apply AI to that or that. And the process of organizing yourself is productization, right? So what you can do is you can break down your marketing processes into your own internal products that you have in a catalog. You can build processes to automate each of those things. So maybe if I had a small campaign, I could automate a bunch of those processes, and I could then measure the results. So what we're seeing is, the next phase. And I think, interestingly, marketing is kind of when that starts to happen, you'll see marketing come full circle. That you'll be back to where I was in the 90s, where marketing was kind of strategic, big picture kind of stuff. It was fun. And a lot of the day-to-day tasks will be automated. And that's a different way of thinking.
A different way of thinking. What about if we look at advertising agencies purely as a separate group of thing? How will productization, because if I understand, advertising itself is very productized in that sense. Will this create extra productization, or you are talking about something much more deeper, better?
I think much deeper than that. I think one of the real issues in advertising is the commercial model for advertising is still about charging out people. So, when somebody says, oh, they're doing some work, even if they have a retainer, the way in which you'll consume that retainer will be, oh, okay, you're going to get a senior art director for 2 days, and you're going to get a copywriter for X number of days or whatever. That model doesn't incentivize the right behavior. And especially when you think that AI is coming into the mix. So now you've got the initial copy is written by AI, and maybe then it's just reviewed and adjusted by a copywriter. So if you're charging for people and the amount of time that involves people is smaller, that's not a good mix. And already, I've spoken with a lot of CMOs who are saying, we expect next year that our agency will charge us less or deliver us more work because we know they're using AI. And so what's happening is AI, when used in that way, is eroding value out of the agency. What needs to happen is the models that they use to charge for their work need to change. There will still be work that needs to be built out on a day rate. That I think that will never disappear. If you want a really good strategist to take the time to understand your business and work on solutions, you can only really do that on a day rate. But if it's about producing a piece of copy or producing, a brochure or producing a short film or a video, that kind of stuff needs to be probably more output charged. Now, when you're charging for the output, it puts the responsibility on the agency to manage their own resources, not on the client to manage and pay for the resources. Then you'll start to see some changes. And we've seen this with one of our clients. One of their clients said, we actually want to change to an output-based model. And here's a list of things that we need, and this is what we will pay for them. It took them about 18 months to get their heads around it and make it profitable. But now they've got it, and they've gone, yeah, actually, we can apply a bunch of automation tools to all of these things and generate a pretty good outcome for that money.
Right, Kieron. So when we are talking of AI and AI into everything, when CMOs are expecting their costs to come down because they know that agencies and everyone else is using AI. In future, if we were talking about pure services, we knew humans were involved. Yeah. But when we are talking of much more, segmented sort of a productization, people will understand that it's more of AI and AI and AI. And it will be difficult to justify the price for whatever services you are, unless you go in a group and tell these are the bunch of people who are actually working for providing services to you. Yeah. How does this future look to you? How do I justify my costs? In fact, I would be eroding my own value if I segmentize or productize it too much.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think you've got to shift the conversation to the outcomes and the outputs and the quality of the work that you're producing, not the inputs and the quality of the people that are being used to produce them. Most agencies talk about their people, and they value their people, and they believe that they're a differentiator, but every other agency also talks about the quality of their people. So it shifts the conversation to talking about the quality of the output and the quality of the results. Basically we have this model of a hierarchy about where you sit in the hierarchy of services you deliver to a client. Right at the bottom is kind of the basic building blocks, photography, copywriting, video production, whatever it might be. Those are the kind of like the building blocks that sit at the bottom. And there are agencies that just specialize in that stuff, and they can be very efficient. And it's not a bad business to be in, but you've got to be clear that I'm at that level. Further up the hierarchy, you've got agencies that manage entire campaigns. So a client will come to you and say, I'm not going to say I want some social media influencers, I want some Google advertising. They're not specifying the mix. What they're coming to the agency and saying, my challenge is I'm launching a new product and I want that launch to be successful. You tell me the best way of doing that. That actually creates a much bigger opportunity for the agency to demonstrate value because they take ownership of the challenge, right? And when they own the problem, they've got a lot more freedom to solve the problem in the way that they think is going to work best. Of course, the downside of that is it has to work. So if it doesn't work, then you've not delivered on the value. So I think it will create opportunities for those people who really know what they're doing, and those people it's back to this idea of a methodology or your intellectual property of knowing how to actually pull the right levers and get the right result. It frees the agency from the client telling them how to run their business. Now, some agencies who get that will do very, very well, and some agencies who don't get that won't.
Absolutely. There's so much to learn about all these things from you, Kieron. And I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of agencies, advertising agencies, marketing organizations, and services business would like to connect with you, know more about this, and get your services. What's the best way for them to do so?
Well, there's our website, which is afewgoodpeople.co.uk. It's quite a long handle for that. But also, I'm on LinkedIn. So happy to have a chat with people on LinkedIn. And also my business partner, Andrew Radley, he's on LinkedIn as well. So that's probably the two best ways of getting hold of us.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thanks, AJ. It's been a pleasure.